just got a new water bottle and I feel like it's the cutest thing ever. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am very happy to be welcoming you back for another time. If this is the first time that you've seen my face, my name is Caroline. I am a full-time student, also with a passion for books and content creation, although I've been slacking on the content creation part. So I make reading vlogs, I make reading recommendations, I do reading tips. Also, occasionally I do reading vlogs, already mentioned that. I do reading staycation and readathons for fun. So if that sounds right up your alley, then welcome to the fam. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button. Leave me a like, give me a share, give me a comment. You know the drill. But today we're talking about my August reading wrap up, plus some of the books I want to read this fall. If we have time, or if I yap too much, then we have to make a separate video on top of that. In the month of August, we read the grand total of 19 books, which is the most amount of books that I've ever read since getting back into reading. Also, I know that it's not very satisfying. I would have loved for it to be like 20 books instead of 19, but it's better than none. So let's talk about all the books that I read in August. And disclaimer, August is a very, I wouldn't say free month for me, because I did have half of the month where I was just like going and studying and doing research, and then the other half was just spent reading, doing staycation, resting. The best of both worlds, if you ask me. And so that means that I had a lot of time to read in August, and I did read a lot of books in August. And also I started so many new series and read some like new books that I'd never read before, so that's fun. Okay, let's get straight into the video. I'm gonna try to make this very brief and short and not ramble for every single book, or else we're gonna be here for 2 hours. I have my Fable over here, so if you have not already followed me on Fable, please do. I post, or try to post, reading updates, also my reviews on there, so please go follow the links in my bio. I started the month off with a banger, and that's Blood of Hercules by Jasmine. And this is the first YA choose that I've ever read, like ever. I didn't even know that this is a concept, like a genre to begin with. So I was fairly surprised reading this book, because I was like, 4 MMCs? You know what I mean? But it was a rather pleasant surprise. This is like a Greek mythology inspired book, and we basically follow this girl who doesn't even know that she's not a god, but a demigod, if you will, up until the point that she's 18, 19 years old, where she had to take this merit test. And when she went on to press her fingerprint onto her exam to kind of seal, and also a form of identification, I suppose, it turned to ash. Like, it basically burned and become nothing, and everybody was like, what's going on? You know what I mean? I mean, everybody knew what's going on, but she did not know what's going on, and she didn't even realize that could be a possibility. And so she got transported into this world of elites, and she had to compete in this competition to earn immortality, because even though she technically is a demigod, and also the first female demigod to be competing since forever, because in their world, females are supposed to be like this very precious and delicate creatures, so they never allow their females to compete in any competition to begin with. So when she competed in this competition, she's like looked down upon and looked to be like unhonorable and dishonorable and worthless even. So there's this very interesting dynamic in terms of sexism and patriarchy in terms of that. Like I mentioned, 4 MMC, juicy. I'm very much excited for the second book, which is coming out in a couple of months. So please check out Blood of Hercules. Okay, moving on. I read I've Been Meaning to Tell You, A Letter to My Daughter by David Chariandi next, and that book was a 4.25 stars. One of the most influential and meaningful nonfiction books that I've ever read. It is what it says. It's a letter from the author to his daughter. It's a letter about the politics of race and how does it feel to be people of color, or just like black people to be specific, in a predominantly white country that is Canada. This letter is about sharing his experience, or the author's experience, of being just that, and how he navigated this identity of whether or not he based his identity on the past, the history of slavery and discrimination towards black people, or does he place his identity in the present or in the future, hoping for a future of equality, justice between different sexes and genders and races? So that's a very interesting concept, and some of the parts of this book really hit close to home, and it made me cry. And I felt for both the author and also his daughter, who is growing up and still has to grapple with this very, very racist society that is built upon white supremacy. And then next, I hopped onto, or I continued, if you will, my train and my journey of reading Jennifer L. Armentrout, Blood and Ash, or From Blood and Ash, and also the prequel series. So next, I read 4 books in that series, not back to back, although I tried to group them together so that's easier to rank them. I read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, that's 4.25 stars. The Crown of Gilded Bones, 4 stars, and those are in the Blood and Ash series. And then I took a break and I went to read the prequel series to that series, and that's A Shadow in the Ember, and I gave that book a 4 stars. And then I went back to the Blood and Ash series and I read The War of Two Queens, 2.5 stars. And I know that's a huge drop, but hear me out. Okay, if you are somebody who has finished this series, please, for the love of God, let me know if I should continue this series, because at this point I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like I have to read the other like 5 or 4 books or 6 books to catch up, and that sounds insane to me. And I feel like this is a series that started out to be very fun. Not fun in the point that the things that happen to these people are fun, but fun because I was really much enjoying myself and, you know, really enjoying the ride. But then I feel like as the time went on, this is getting unnecessarily long, to the point that I'm like, why? Like, you could have wrapped up in like book 4 already. And even having 4 books plus a prequel series is already too long, in my opinion. I don't know what she has to say, like the author, but I feel like on TikTok and on social media, there are people who agree with me that this is getting too long. And at this point, I'm like, is she writing this book just to write this book? Or is she writing this series to profit off of her reader? Because at this point, this is getting out of hand. So let me know, please, for the love of God, let me know if I should continue this series. The last book that I read, which was The War of Two Queens, I gave it 2.5 stars. I thought it was okay, but it was definitely like not there. It was definitely not even 3 stars. It was not good, in my opinion. And reading from the title, I was like, okay, that sounds like a title of a finale. The War of Two Queens. You know what I mean? Let me pull up my review for The War of Two Queens. I said, this book was okay. I'm starting to feel like the series is too drawn out and long, and I'm getting bored. I feel like she could have wrapped it up already, and it's getting to a point that I don't care what's happening to Poppy and Castile anymore. Still debating on whether or not I should pick up the next book or not. Still do. Likely not. I think I'm taking a break from this series as of now, and then I'll let you know in the near future my decision. Next thing that I read was Kiss of the Basilisk, and this was a 2.75 stars. I decided that I will not be continuing this series because the female main character, I could not stand her. Also, forgot to mention, this is also a why choose, but technically not, because at the end she chose somebody. I don't like Temperance. I feel like she's dumb. She has nothing to say. Moving on. Cultish by Amanda Montell. I gave it 3 stars, and this is the next nonfiction book that I read. I thought it was okay. I really liked the part where she mentioned about the cultish brands, like for example SoulCycle or Lululemon or Alo Yoga, and some of the like social media as a cult, you know what I mean? And certain mental health figures like Joe Dispenza, and that made sense. I feel like sometimes we look at the word cults and we associate very negative connotations to them without realizing that the lives that we live or the social media presence that we live and we have is kind of cultish. I would recommend checking that book out, although I would say that the middle part of it was very hard to read, where it talks about like religion and how like the language that we use in terms of the gym and the fitness industry is very much derived from, you know, Christianity or Protestantism. Detox, you know how that is very much, even though at first you looked at it and you hear it and you're like, okay, there's nothing wrong with it, but if you think very deeply about that word, it sounds kind of religious. Give it a try, but be prepared to go on a ride and realize that it's actually more nuanced than we think when we think of cults. Okay, the next book that I read actually brightened the mood up for August, because so far I've been reading okay books, and we read Problematic Summer Romance by Hazelwood, and oh my god, I devoured this book in a day. I think I devoured it in like less than 24 hours, and I gave it 4.75 stars. I debated a 5 stars, but I feel like it was too perfect, and I also feel like the ending was not very much to my liking, and the way that the main character, like the female main character, ended, like character-wise, was not very much persuasive. Okay, there are a lot of tropes that are being mentioned in the Problematic Summer Romance, and we have obviously the age gap trope. That's the most prominent. I think the male character, he is 13 years older than the female main characters. We also have long distance relationship, or like miscommunication and second chance romance, because technically he refused her and he rejected her like a couple of years in advance, but she still is very much in love with him. Also, the trope of brothers best friends also is very prominent. I really like this book. I feel like because there are so many tropes that are packed into this book, it adds such a layered perspective to the relationship, and I could see how real this is. Looking at this relationship, I could see how it could be real, you know what I mean? It could be from real life and between real adult mature people, even though they were not very mature at the beginning. But that's the point of maturing, that's the point of growing older. And I feel like especially the male character, he has such a depth to them and complexity to them. And after finishing this book, it kind of solidified to me the fact that Hazelwood is slowly and surely becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. The way she writes, the way she unpacks emotional trauma, relationships issues, and the way that we communicate not only with other people but with ourselves is so beautiful, that looking at every single, or up until this point, every single books that I've read from her, and reading about every single kind of relationship and situationship, even just like communication between people and characters, I could look at those and really feel resonated, but also feel like they're real and raw and human and intimate, which is very rare. Even though they're flawed, but they're flawed in the most beautiful and perfect sense. So I recommend checking that book out along with other books from her. I haven't read like all of her books yet, but I will be, because she's just amazing. All the next 2 books I read were arcs. I read The Secret Book Society by Madeline Martin, and I gave that book a 4 star. I thought it was good. It was very much atmospheric. I think this is one of those books that's perfect for the fall and just like the upcoming spooky season, even though it's not very spooky. But it talks about the secret book society of women who came from very oppressive and abusive households and situationships and marriages, and how they were able to find this sanctuary even among themselves, discussing about books that were banned or were not allowed to read, essentially by their husbands, and how at the end they found so much more than just book discussions. They found sisterhood, they found family, deep, empowering, powerful female connections that I really, really enjoyed. There also is a subplot of mystery and thriller involving one of the characters, and oh my god, so freaking beautiful. That book, perfect. Especially if you like classics like Jane Austen, Jane Eyre, all of those classics. There are many references to those books in that book. So perfect atmospheric book for the fall. The next book that I listened to, not read, but this is an audiobook, it's Only Lovers in the Building by Nadine Gonzalez, and I gave that book a 3.5 stars. And this was a solid beach read, summer romance, very much like Miami, like imagine reading a book in Miami under the sun, sunbathing, you know, tanning, things of that sort. That's the vibe that this book has. It talks about this lawyer, corporate lawyer, who quit her job to come to Miami for like 3 months over the summer to figure things out, because she didn't know what she wanted to do after she quit her job. And there she met up with a hot, sexy, but also literate and smart and intelligent bartender. But also he's not only a bartender, he's a poet, he's a translator, he's a lover of books, and just he's amazing. And at the end of the summer, somehow they ended up with a podcast, a book deal, and also just like a 2-person book club. That's the vibe that they're going for. Such a refreshing summer romance, and I really recommend listening to this book because the author and the person who like narrates the audiobook, she has such on point French accent. You're gonna get what I'm saying if you listen to the book. Okay, the next book that I read was Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, and this is the next classic that I read from Jane Austen besides Pride and Prejudice, and I had such high expectations going into Northanger Abbey because I absolutely cherished and adored Pride and Prejudice. It was like 5-star, so beautiful, but I was kind of let down by Northanger Abbey, to be honest. Maybe because the premise, like, you know, like, let me show you actually. I have that book, it's just that I'm too lazy to pick it up. Okay, this is my copy of Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen, and this is the Barnes & Noble's classic edition, and I showed this version of mine once already, maybe on my TikTok, but I picked this up at my local library for like, what, $5, which is like such a steal. But anyway, the blurb that I read, either in the, front dust jacket here, maybe it kind of misled me to thinking that this is more of a gothic, you know, like Halloween-y atmospheric read of that sort, but ended up it's not that. It's not even close. It was like definitely not scary but dark at some point during the book, but it's not gothic. It's not gothic. Some people can argue that it's gothic because of the like haunted chambers and the old mansions and the old like villas and things of that sort that can look very gothic-y. But to me, it's not that gothic for the book to claim to be gothic, if that makes sense. Or at least the dust jacket to claim that it's gothic. It's also another love story, but this love story is very different from the one in Pride and Prejudice, where it's not very passionate, it's not very yearning, it's not very like that type of passionate love. This is more of a, I don't know what to say. Okay, this is more of a one-sided love, which sounds very bad, and I do believe that's mutual, but the way that's written and depicted seems like the love and the passion and the yearning only comes from the female character and not the male character. He's just like there, I don't know, like he's just there and he's not actively like pursuing her or whatever. I mean, he asked her to dance with him like multiple times, or she's the only person that danced with him like throughout the balls and stuff, but still, you know, he's not Mr. Darcy. Anyway, I digress. I would say this is a perfect like beginner classic. If you're like thinking of getting into classic but you don't know what to read, this might be a very easy read. Okay, I'm gonna read you the blurb from the back. It says, Catherine Morland, that's the female character, a quixotic young woman who sees things through the distorting lens of the Gothic novel, must grow out of that illusion. In doing so, she follows the trajectory typical of all true novels. She moves from innocence to experience. Catherine must change. She must react to life and become, by the end of the story, another person. Yeah, that's Northanger Abbey. And then moving on, let's check on the time. I don't want to yap too much. Okay, already 30 minutes. The next series that I started, or at least read, was Spark of the Everflame, the Kindred Curse saga, the first book in this saga. Okay, I'm on the fence of whether or not to continue reading this book. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. It was not mind-blowing. It was not up to the level that I hold it to, or the expectation that I had. I don't know, I don't like DM. I feel like she's not doing anything. She's not contributing to the story that much. Also, there's not a lot of yearning and not a lot of like, you know, attraction and chemical and chemistry coming from the two characters, which I was okay with, but the way that it was written, it seems like she's just stupid, and I don't like stupid characters. And I would love to hear more from the male character perspective, because he seems like so broody, but she keeps talking and she keeps doing stuff that I don't even understand. Maybe she gets even more annoying in book 2 and I'm gonna be so mad. But at this point, I'm not going to read the second book of that series anytime soon. Please convince me in the comments if you read the book 2 and you feel like it's so much better. But I feel like with the way that's going and the way that's written, I don't think it's gonna get any better. Like soon, anytime soon. Okay, the next series that I read, this is like kind of picking up. This is another series that I really enjoyed, and that's the Lakefront Billionaire series by Lauren Asher. I read Love Redesigned and Love Unwritten, and I'm waiting to read Love Arranged, but I'm just taking a break from the series so far. I feel like I don't want to finish it off now, because after I finish it I don't have anything else to read, and I don't like that. So for Love Redesigned, like I mentioned somewhere, I tried reading this book once before, but like 3 chapters in I got so bored and I just put it down. But this time around I gave it 4 stars and I really enjoyed this. This is a story between this is a story between, I already made their couple name. This is a story between Dahlia and Julian. So Julia, they both work in this kind of construction, interior design, kind of architecture field, but he's the building, like Bob the Builder, but she's the interior design, like designing everything. And she has apparently a very unique way of designing and just like designing the house that she works on. And they're both very rich, and he's a billionaire obviously, but she's also very well off herself, and she's able to make a name for herself. And they both have lots of traumas with their past, their history, and the way that other people treated them. So most of the book was just them kind of navigating that situation and untying the knots in their gut and their past, which I thought was beautiful, especially coming from Julian, because he holds on to too much. He holds on to so much, but he never tells people. And so at the end, seeing that very relaxed version of him was very much refreshing and very heartwarming even. So that's the first book. The second book, Love Unwritten, is about Julian's cousin, Raphael, I think. Yeah, Raphael, and then his nanny, Ellie. His nanny for his son, not for him. But for this book, I was a little bit disappointed because, okay, Nico, is it Nico? The son, whatever his name is. The son has such a unique condition, eye condition, that means that he's going blind by the time that he's 20. And that premise was very much interesting to me. But somehow at the end, it completely lost that, and it only focused on their romance, which, okay, I understand that's the entire point of the book. But I wish that, because the entire time that I was reading that book, I was looking forward to learning more about the son's condition and how they're gonna cope. And so maybe this is gonna be something that's gonna be mentioned in book 3, like how life is for the son as his condition worsens and as he has more and more difficulty with his vision. So that's something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and kind of, to be honest, like inappropriate and even indecent, because the reason why they got together, like knew of each other to begin with, was through the son. Like he hired her to work as first his music tutor, became the stay-at-home nanny for the both of them. I was quite disappointed. So hopefully in book 3 there will be mention of the son, or at least like snippets of how their life is after they get married and after they moved in to live together and things like that. So that's Love Unwritten. I need to take a break. This is too much. Also, how have you guys been? I've been having the most busiest, most chaotic, the most packed, like jam-packed 2 weeks of my entire life. The next book that I read was Nocticadia by Carrie Lake. After reading this book, I went down a dark academia rabbit hole. Even though this is the only book that I read in August that's like dark academia, but I did go on TikTok and look at like other recommendations that's like dark academia, but that's also like very similar to Nocticadia, and I found a couple, but nothing hits as Nocticadia did for me. The reason why it made me so excited to read this book was because the entire premise or the entire project that these two people are working on is biology related, and I felt so seen, I felt so heard, and I felt like, okay, I've been studying in college for 4 years, almost 4 years, just to be able to understand like the technical terms that were mentioned. So that's like the highlight of my week when I read Nocticadia. So basically this is a professor-student trope, and they were working on kind of navigating this very infectious, contagious disease that involved worms. So that's the only part that I did not like, because microbiology for me it's not fun. But okay, I get what they're doing. And he, the professor, he's very dark, and he basically killed people for fun. I shouldn't say that. He killed people who were very bad, like they're literally like the dirt of society, and they're like the most useless, worthless pieces of shit in society, who like goes on like murdering people, beating up their child and things like that. And after killing those people, or at least before killing those people, he injected them with this disease, this worm situation. And then that's how he's able to observe his study and observe the effects of injection into their body. And their entire quest was just trying to figure out what went wrong and how does this organism work and whether or not they could be used as a cure for medicine or whatever. He also has such a unique like condition himself, and you're gonna see that when you read that book. But if you have any recommendation in terms of dark academia that's very similar to like Nocticadia, I know that Anathema, it's another series that's written by the same author. It's also very much recommended. There's another book I forgot, but I'm gonna be putting the picture up here. That book has been compared to this book very much, and some people like the other more than Nocticadia, and some people prefer Nocticadia and hated the other book. And so I'm on defense of whether or not I should read the other book, but we'll see. But that's Nocticadia. And then the next series that I started was Ruthless Creatures by J.T. Geisinger. I don't remember what series this is a part of, and I gave this book a 3.75 stars. And to be honest, this is a I really like this book. It's more of a mafia. Okay, so this is dark romance that I have gone down a rabbit hole with, and it was very spicy, so I'm gonna say that. It is about a girl whose fiance went missing like 5 years ago. So she's basically dealing with like grief of some sort, because at this point, like after going missing for 5 years, everybody is like, okay, he's probably dead, so you probably should move on and live your life, which she eventually did. But the beginning of the book opened with her kind of navigating with that grief, which I really appreciated. And there's another kind of mystery and thriller subplot of this book, and that took me by surprise. I did not see that coming, so I really enjoyed that, as she is kind of trying to talk to herself and ask herself, okay, do I move on or do I just continue grieving? There's this hot neighbor that moved in next door, literally next door to her, and he's very hot apparently, obviously, but he worked in the mafia. She didn't know that until like, you know, a couple of days. But the one thing that I really appreciate about that man is that he's very direct and he's very upfront. Like, he's like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, I'm very dangerous, you should stay away from me, but I'm very interested to you and I would really want to get to know you. So, things of that nature. So he's very, very direct, and so she knows that upfront, that's what she's getting herself into. The spice is not the only thing that's being mentioned, if that makes sense. Let me see what. Oh, this is a Queens and Monsters series. So that's the series. Moving on. Okay, the next book that I read was also type of mafia romance. This is more of a YA, the second YA that I read in August, and this is Vengeful Gods by Elliot Rose. And I gave this book a 2.5 stars. Okay, I agree. This is very, and emphasize the very spicy book. YA romance, I think 3 men. Yeah, 3 men and 1 girl. Very dark as well. I don't recommend going into that book without knowing anything. Check the trigger warnings, check the disclaimers, check everything. It is a book that's based in terms of sex trafficking. So that's the premise of it, and you're gonna know, but I'm not gonna tell too much or else gonna spoil everything. But she's basically the heir to one of the most powerful empires in the underworld. So it's not like the legal empire, but the illegal empires. Her father is the head of this empire, but he died, he passed away. So now people are asking her to step up, but she did not want to step up because she's disgusted by the empire or the work that her father initiated. And so she tried to kind of like move out, try to start her own life, but then somehow one day there's this hot stranger coming into her tattoo bar. She's a tattoo artist and asked for a tattoo at the like very end of her shift. And so after that, he asked her out for a date, and that's when she was kidnapped by them. I also was pretty grossed out at some point, so that's why I did not give it a very high rating. Okay, this is getting so long. This is getting very long, so I hope you're like buckled up and having a snack with you, because the next book that we read was Beartown by Fredrik Backman. Oh, I returned that book, so I don't have a physical copy for you. I filmed this book for another video, so that's gonna be out. in a couple of weeks, but that's the video where I read book talk book faves, and this is one of the books that I read, and I gave this book a 4-star. This is my first Fredrik Backman, and I really enjoyed that, but not initially. Initially, when I first read this book, I was very overwhelmed because he had such a unique way of writing that just at first did not click with me. So I did have to put this book down for a couple of days before I picked it up again. And after I picked it up again, I really enjoyed that. The way that it's written it's multi-POV in my opinion, but we do have main characters. And it's kind of oscillates between multi-POV and different people's POV, people's experiences, but all aims at trying to prove how big of a culture hockey is in this town called Beartown. And I know the premise of the book coming into the book, like before reading the book, but even so, it did not prepare me for the level of heartache and the level of heartbreak and the level of just like gut-wrenching, heart-stomping, heartbreaking sadness that happened throughout the book. And it was a very heavy book. So once again, check the trigger warnings. Sexual abuse was mentioned, sexual assault, and just the denial and the victim blaming, things of that nature were mentioned. So if that's something that you're triggered by, I would say take it slow. But I do think this is such an important book to read because the end message was powerful. Like basically it tries to answer this question of how would you do if you're sexually assaulted by a culture that everybody around you worships, like literally worships. Do you speak up, or do you just like hide and not speak up and be accepted by everybody else? Because the moment that you speak up and the moment that you voice the story, even if your story is the truth, people will be calling you out and telling you like that you're a liar, calling you names, treating you differently, and being like isolated basically. So that's the premise. And when I got to that part, I kid you not, I was like, I did not know what to read. I did not know what to say. It was just like powerful. And the way that he writes, like once you get it, it just like hits the deepest, the most sacred part of your heart and your soul. That's the only way that I could like explain this book. It's just so beautiful. And I will be reading other books from Fredrik Backman, but we need a break. Oh, that's the final book. Okay, that's the final book that I read in August. Oh, I didn't really realize because in my like Fable, I still had like 3 more books to go, but that's in September, so we're good. Okay, those are all the books that I read in why do I keep saying October? Those are all the books that I read in August, and it was such a wild reading month for me. I had so many misses, so many hits, but also so many checks and so many gains. I learned a lot about my reading taste. I like experimented a lot with like nonfiction and stuff. Also finishing and starting so many new series that I could not even believe. We read very diversely this month, which is the goal of reading for me now. I read like fantasy, romance, some sports romance, but also just like some classics as well, some books that really made me think and question life. With that being said, let's talk about the books that I hope to read in fall. Let me go get them. Okay, so I still have more. Let's talk about these books first. So fall, the theme is I do want to still read diversely. It's not like it's fall and that means that I have to read like spooky and dark books. I don't want that. I want to read diversely, and sometimes having a good like beach read, some like summer romancy book really is a good palate cleanser. The first book that I want to finish is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is my official attempt to try to finish the first Law trilogy by Abercrombie. And I know, I have the entire universe of his, but I have not read a single book by Joe Abercrombie. So that's a bummer. So I will be rectifying that this fall. This is Alina Ferrante, my brilliant friend. This is another book talk book. At least on my side of TikTok, this has been praised by so many people, like recommended by so many people. Apparently this is a very, once again, heart-wrenching but also deep, connected with your soul type of book. So very much excited. I have no idea what this is book about, and apparently this is a series. This is book 1 of the Neapolitan novels. Also beautiful cover. She has such a unique way of doing her covers, so excited. Another sort of those book. This is Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang, and I have heard lots of people also mentioning this book. And I know that this is a book about AI, I think, but I'm not sure, and I'm just intrigued. I don't know what this is about, so I'm in for a ride, I think. Okay, the other fantasy series that I want to start is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book. I only have the copy of the first book, but if this hits, I might be buying the entire thing. But I have no idea. Once again, I have no idea what to expect. I don't know what this is about. I don't think you're supposed to know, and I'm going in blind, and let's see where that takes us. Okay, I know that this is not very dark and spooky vibe, but this is still very cozy. You know, this is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, and I don't know, it's been a while. It took me a while to even pick up this book. I tried looking in my local library the other day, like a couple of weeks ago, but I did not see this book. So I think a couple of days ago when I went the other time, I saw this book and I was like, I need to read this book. And I think this is in a series as well. So lots of series this fall apparently. But I think the second book already came out, so we don't have to wait for the second book to come out. And in my library, he has another series that's apparently completed. So I saw like 4 books in that series. And so that's why I'm like, I should read this book first and see if that clicks and see if his writing clicks with me so that I can move on to the other series that he has. My first Aline Hilderbrand book. This is The Hotel Nantucket. Also a series, I believe. And once again, another author that has such a unique way of doing her cover. So I think this is gonna be a great palette cleanser and just a great book overall. Many people, once again, praised and recommended this book to me all over social media. So The Hotel Nantucket. This is getting very, very tall. And finally, okay, hear me out. I don't know if I should read Dan Brown, but he used to be, when I read Inferno by him, not in English though, in my native tongue, in Vietnamese, I was absolutely blown away by the level of genius that he has and the way that he writes and the way that everything seems to just make sense at the end, but when you're reading it, it doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you had no clue, you have nothing to go off of. So this is another thing that I want to start from him. I do eventually want to reread Inferno, but I do want to read Dan Brown Origin. And then going off of Dan Brown, I was rewatching Inferno the other day, or watching Inferno for the first time, because I didn't even know that the Inferno book has a movie adaptation. But as I was like watching it, that's where the desire to reread Inferno came from. I wanted to also read The Divine Comedy by Dante. I recently saw Bella, the Throne of Pages on YouTube, read Dante Divine Comedy, and she really enjoyed it actually. She's been enjoying it. She hasn't finished by the time that I'm speaking. So I also want to read Dante Divine Comedy, and then after that I do want to reread Inferno, just to see if after I read Divine Comedy, see if that really helps me understand Inferno a little bit more. So that's up on my TBR for the fall, I think. And then I have a couple other that I want to read. I'm actually reading Virginia Woolf's Orlando, and this is very fall. Although this is a very weird book, and I'm gonna be filming this book in the same vlog for the book talk book phase, even though, you know, some people, this is not their book talk book, but on my side of TikTok, Virginia Woolf is like huge, and this is my first book by her, and so far it intrigues me. I don't even know at this point, even though I'm like 100 pages in, I don't know where this is going. To be honest with you, I feel so dumb and so silly reading this book because I have no idea where the story is going. But I feel like that's the point, isn't it? I don't know. But yeah, that's Virginia Woolf's Orlando. And then I'm gonna be reading and finishing Metamorphoses by Ovid. I put a pause on that book because my classics class, we're reading that book in a couple of weeks, and so I want to wait to read that book then, so that I don't have to reread it the second time around. I also have this book. I don't know if you can see me if I'm standing. I also have this book. I have a couple of books that I do want to finish. Okay, let me bring it up there. But I'm basically dismantling my entire bookshelf just to show you my full TBR. But this is the complete short stories of Ernest Hemingway, and my father loves Ernest Hemingway. And so I feel like, you know, a story a day type of vibe for the entire fall season might be very, very beautiful. And also the text and the way that's printed, it's like tiny. So I don't even know if it's gonna be like too much for me. But anyway, that's the other book that I want to finish. I feel like it's just very fall. And then this is my first, I would say, philosophical book. This is Michel Foucault, Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison. I picked this up somewhere on campus. Somebody just left it lying around and I decided to pick it up. I don't know what to expect. I know that it's going to be sort of a very textbooks dense discussion of prison, like disciplines and punish. And I know that he's a German philosophy or some sort of philosophy where he does philosophical work. And so I have been wanting to get back, or at least start and dip my toe into philosophy. I know that it's such a hard field. It's a very niche field, and not everybody can do that and can understand and can resonate with philosophy. But I've been following Dante's journey on TikTok, and he has been reading so many philosophy, and he apparently loves philosophy. Especially, I think he's reading Socrates or Plato, whatever, from start to finish, like in chronological order, and that's so impressive. I also want to do something similar, although not reading like every single Socrates book. I feel like I'm gonna start with Foucault first and then work my way through because I don't know what to expect. It's my first philosophy book, and even I don't know if I should like doubt myself and my ability as a reader or not, but right now I'm kind of doubting myself a little bit with philosophy. Can you see this? This is getting very, very tall. Oh, very tall. And then this is Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility. This is the other book by Jane Austen. I have like a couple books by Jane Austen actually. I also have Mansfield Park that I've been putting off, but I feel like I'm gonna read Sense and Sensibility first by Jane Austen to see if it lives up to the hype. I know that some people, they don't like Sense and Sensibility as much as Pride and Prejudice, so we're gonna see. Let's see. Yeah. And then finally, or I don't think this is gonna be final, like I'm obviously going to be reading more books than this for the entire fall weather. But this is One Yellow Eye by Leigh Radford. And this cover looks absolutely... Oh, can you see it? This cover looks absolutely like beautiful. I'm sorry, it's kind of reflective a little bit. But this is basically set from the blurb that I read from the dust jacket. This is set post-zombie epidemic, so it's like a post-apocalypse. This person, Kester Shelley, she has just survived this zombie epidemic, but her husband has not, and so she's trying to find a cure to this zombie infection because he has been infected with the zombie virus or pathogen. And so she she has to join a lab to work that out. And so it sounds very gruesome. Sounds very dark, sounds very mystical, not mystical, mystery. It sounds very mysterious and thriller and also biology, like sciencey. So I'm very much excited, and I don't know. We'll see. But that's, I think, a third or like some books that I want to read in fall or during this September or like October, November, December, the Burr month season. Let me know in the comments down below what books you are planning to read in the cozy or not so cozy autumn, fall season and winter season. These are some of the books that I have accumulated over the past couple of weeks and couple of months. There are a lot, but I feel like I could handle them. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's everything from me for the August reading wrap up. I hope you enjoy hearing me ramble and watching me talk about the books that I read. I really enjoyed making this video. I feel like this is more me, and also I'm in a very weird mood, so the way that I talk might differ a lot from my usual like videos that you see before this, but hopefully it's not gonna rub you the wrong way, and hopefully you enjoy hearing me talk for an hour as I'm recording this. Might be less, but I'm going to try to kind of experiment with my content creation, because the past videos that I posted, it was like under 45 minutes. I try to keep it like very short and sweet, but let's try with this video to see if I could go longer and people would actually enjoy this version of me more than the other version. All of those versions are me, but just that I selectively show you the parts that I want to show you. But anyway, I hope you enjoy. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in every single week to hear me talk about books. And yeah, that's all from me. Take care. Please take care of yourself. I know it's a very busy season for every single one of us, especially if you're either a student or a mom or like just like going back to work or like corporate job, whatever. Please take care of yourself, and also make time to read if you can during your very long hours and very hectic schedule. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching once again. If you like this video, please consider giving me a like, a share, a subscribe if you haven't already. You know the drill. If you want to support my channel, you can buy me a new book or help me build my bookshelf, or buy me a coffee, buy me a matcha, buy me a fun drink using the Ko-fi linked in the description. If you do choose to support my channel, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you, and this is everything from me. I'm gonna see you very soon with another episode, and until then, bye, peace out. I'm so weird, I'm so sorry.